All right. Hi, everyone, and welcome to tonight's Young Scholars webinar, Skills for High School, What Middle Schoolers Should Start Building Now. We're so excited to have you here today. And while we wait for a few more attendees for a moment to connect, I'd love to introduce myself and share a few quick announcements before we officially get started. My name is Kyla Evans, and I'm the Marketing Optimization Coordinator here at Young Scholars and NSHSS, and it's a true pleasure to help kick things off today and welcome you. Now, turning to today's session, before we dive in, a couple of quick housekeeping reminders. This webinar is being recorded, so everyone who registered will receive a link to the recording by email afterwards. So if you miss anything or want to revisit the session, you'll have that opportunity. That said, we do encourage you to stay with us live because this is your chance to ask questions directly to our host. And at the end of the webinar, we'll also share a link in the chat to today's slide deck, so be sure to stick around for that. Since this is a Zoom webinar, your cameras and microphones are off by default, but you can participate at any time using the Q&A tab at the bottom of your screen. So feel free to type in your questions throughout the event. And towards the end, we'll have a live Q&A session. And now, I'm thrilled to introduce your host for today's session. Melissa Decker is the Chief Consultant and founder of the R.A.C.E Consulting LLC. With a passion to help high school families, she uses her 20-plus years of teaching, administrative, and academic advising experience to relieve families that are overwhelmed with all stages of high school and college admissions with a guided relationship to meet the students' needs. Outside of her professional life, Melissa has been married to her high school sweetheart for 23 years. Her two children, Cole and Kylie, are proud University of Georgia students. But when she's not guiding students towards their academic goals, you'll find Melissa enjoying the outdoors, playing tennis, crafting handmade cards, or diving into a good book. Without further ado, please join me in welcoming Melissa.
Thanks, Kyla. I am so happy to be here, and I so appreciate that warm welcome and introduction. Guys, I am so excited to be part of this community of middle schoolers and parents tonight so I can share what I am passionate about. So just another little tidbit about myself. I had the privilege of creating a life skills curriculum for my sixth, seventh, and eighth grade students in my last school. So this was a true gift to be asked to do this webinar. My passion is fueled by topics like tonight's that were already embedded in my curriculum that I enjoyed teaching for so many years. And then what I found was I couldn't stop there. So I carried it over into my teaching in high school and taught a class for juniors that helped prepare them to launch after high school. And then as I continued to work with high school students, I fell in love with working with high school students and wanted to become the academic advisor and wanted to do more. So that's how R.A.C.E Consulting was born. I wanted the ability to reach more students and families and remove that unnecessary stress and protect them from their relationships within their families. So if you're here because high school feels like it's coming in fast, or you're not sure if your student is ready as everyone assumes they are, you're in the right place. Tonight is what I actually want people to hear about starting strong and not just feeling reassured. So with that said, I've created an agenda with 4 main topics. The first one, why the middle school to high school transition can be tricky. And we just want to talk through that and ease your mind on why that is. Just assume that it is a tricky kind of transition. And number 2, what are some schools assuming our students already know? Unfortunately, there are assumptions and we want to come through that and talk about it. Number 3, what are 3 skills that matter most and what can we be doing right now? Which leads me to number 4, what should we start doing now? Because we are still in middle school and we're not in high school, but we want to get a head start. So why is middle to high school transition so tricky? Why have people said that to us? Why do you think that, right? So the first point I want to make is that middle school success is not automatically a high school readiness. So unfortunately, the biggest mistake some families make is assuming that because a student is doing fine now, they're going to be fine later. So if we assume that because our student is getting good grades, maybe they're getting straight A's in middle school, well, the assumption is in high school, they're going to get straight A's. Or maybe you see them studying and you're like, oh, it's going to work in high school. It's going to be perfect. We can't already assume that that's going to be the same. So we want to be ready for that transition. The second thing I would encourage families to be aware of is independence expectations are going to jump fast. So unfortunately, high school doesn't ease our students into independence. They actually expect on day one for these students to be ready. Teachers are going to rely on the students to be more mature in high school, right? They're expecting them to be ready and be independent. They're expecting them to jump right in and have success. But what we're finding, our students are also expected to go to the teacher and advocate for themselves as needed. Maybe we're asking them to monitor their grades right now, or just assume they know how to study. And that's not always the case. So we want to make sure as parents and families that we're supporting that transition. And lastly, I just want you to be aware that sometimes the support is going to just quietly drop off. It's not that all support goes away, so please hear me. But what I do see is that it kind of falls off and you're almost surprised, right? Our students are caught off guard. Systems might change that are different from middle school. And if students don't quickly catch on, they're going to stumble. And then we need to catch them. Parents see the need to release control over their schedules and monitoring homework because independence is going to be expected, right? And that can be sometimes hard as we want to just help and coach them. And lastly, teachers are less likely to reach out to the students and families with concerns. We do see that shift oftentimes, and we just want to be ready for it so we're not caught off guard. So, like mentioned in my previous slide, the following three things are expectations that we have found high school students need or assume they will have the first day they enter the building. So let's discuss these more so we can build these skills with them now before high school arrives. What is one thing we can talk about is that how to manage their time better. We can also talk about how to study independently or how to advocate for themselves. And those are the big three takeaways that we just want to talk through. Because our systems are going to change, we know that's going to happen. Students oftentimes find themselves experiencing a skills issue rather than a content issue. So parents hear me, and students, while on this call, think about that. You might be experiencing harder content, which makes you think, oh my goodness, my grades are failing because I don't know the material. But we can't just jump to that assumption that we need a tutor because the material just got more difficult. It may just need that they need our help mentoring and coaching them on one of these three skills we're going to talk about. It may just be a skill-based lapse or problem rather than it actually being content that's really hard and needing more attention. We find no one is owning that teaching of the skills to our students, unfortunately. And so we find teachers are assuming that students have them. We assume by the parents that the schools are going to handle it, right, parents? We want them to just do it. But then we have this gap or this middle ground where we see problems show up and we need to address it. So let's talk about this. Let's break these down into three areas that help you prepare so you are ready for high school. The first skill we want to work on is called organization and time awareness. So students, I want to talk to you about these three important skills and give you some suggestions on how to work on these now while you're in middle school. So you are all ready and set for high school. So I'm sure you've heard it from mom and dad, teachers about being organized and using your time wisely. But let's talk more closely about how this looks different, maybe in high school, and how you can prepare now so you're ready. So the first thing I would tell you is that you're going to see a shift in the possibility of multiple classes or multiple deadlines. So yeah, of course, in middle school, you've got several class periods, different teachers, different classes, and of course you have assessments and tests, but there typically is an increase in that when you get to high school and you find that maybe the assessments are coming more frequently or the projects. So what we need to do is we need to manage those. That's the key. So here's a suggestion for you. What if you tried using a calendar or an agenda to track your assignments and assessments? Or could you create some reminders that work for you on your phone or on a sticky note in your room or your bathroom mirror where you'll see that reminder almost every day? That's the one my daughter used, just so you know. And then what about being aware of your assignments and tests and due dates and expectations? What happens when we're aware and when we have these reminders in front of us? It's the way we remember things, and that's going to be our system that saves us. So Kyla's going to put some links to blogs that I've written in the chat as we go along So you have access to those to reference and read later. These blogs are going to go more in depth as to what we're discussing with each one of these topics tonight, so you can look at them. The other thing I would tell you is less checking and more consequences is going to benefit you. So students, you're going to find that there's less checking on you from the people that love you in your life, like mom and dad, to your teachers. That just falls away as you get in high school. So for some of you, you're like, yes, give me that independence. I am ready. Others of you, you're probably sitting there going, I'm not ready. That might be a little scary for you, and that's okay. So we also recognize that with this independence and this freedom comes some consequences that may not be as nice in high school. They may become a little steeper. So your grades may be more affected by your actions. Choosing not to study may be reflective in a grade that you receive and you're not happy, right? So we need to make sure we're monitoring that. And our teachers are checking in with us less and may not come to you until you have several low grades or missing work. So again, that lack of checking on you might be a little nerve-wracking, and we just need to make sure we're aware of that so we can own our individual needs. And lastly, I would caution you from missing work snowballing. So we tend to see a problem where in high school, the missing work piles up or the late work, and we think we're okay. But we really need to focus on that system that we already talked about. What is a system that we can create that'll help you track your work and will avoid this from happening? Here's a fun fact for you. Did you know the number one problem of freshmen is not failing tests? It's not about the bad grades, it's the missing and the late work. So let's make sure you're not part of that system or part of that problem and get back to being organized, right? Parents, high school is where you take a step back. And some of you, that might not feel very nice to say, and I get it. I'm a parent too, got two college kids, but it is time for us to allow our students to be independent. And even when we think things are falling through, it's okay that consequences are going to happen. So be available to help coach them as needed, but try really hard not to control those agendas and those planners and calendars that we were referencing. What I'd rather encourage you to do is show them what you use. Can you show them one of your things that you use on a daily basis? How does it affect you in your daily work or daily structure at home as a parent? Modeling to me is the best tool for our students. And what better way than to show them what mom and dad use? So I would encourage students to create a system that works for them. And remember, it doesn't have to be your system, parents, but rather let's find a system that they choose and they like. Which leads me into studying and learning habits. So, one of the things we notice is that homework does not always equal studying. In high school, it's going to take a little more. So, students, do you find yourself right now just studying a little bit for some subjects? Does it feel like, oh, I did my homework, so I'm ready for the test? Well, guess what? In high school, you may find that be a little different. Doing your homework may not be enough any longer for upcoming assessments. And so we find ourselves having to put a little more time, a little more effort into studying, and that will have to be a necessary daily thing. So let's talk about studying. What kind of studying should you be doing? We want to make sure we avoid being a passive learner and move to becoming an active learner. So you're probably sitting there going, well, what in the world are you talking about, Melissa? What are the differences between passive and active? So active learning is just that. You are actively engaged in the lesson or the studying. So for example, active learning takes place during the lesson in school. Students, you may find yourself participating in a discussion that your teacher is having, or maybe in math class, you are working out the problems alongside of the teacher. These are both great examples of active learning. Well, what does that look like at home? So at home, you might study with a friend, you might have your parent quiz you, or quiz yourself even is considered active learning. Now, the opposite is what we want to stay away from, and that's passive learning. So, to be a passive learner, you are literally just reading the material to memorize it, which you might find works in middle school. But again, that shift to harder and more rigorous classes might cause you to need to do more. So, rereading your notes will likely not be enough for passing those high school tests. And we're not doing anything to engage ourselves in the learning if we're just being a passive learner. So, we want to stay away from that. Another thing about studying and learning habits is tests are going to arrive just a little faster than students expect, which might catch you off guard, students. I'll just warn you. You might find that you are needing to be more ready because they're frequently coming. They might come every week for tests, where maybe now in middle school, it's every other week. Or maybe in math class, you find that you had two quizzes in 1 week. My goodness, like who knew that that was ever a thing, right? So we just want to be ready for that in case it happens. And again, creating a study plan and a study space will encourage you to prepare for these frequent assessments. It's super important that we're consistent with our plan and always in our study space to create a habit. And when we do this, and we do this on a daily basis, and we're intentional, the return is going to be prepared students are going to feel calmer and have more success. So, students, I would encourage you to consider that little place in your house or your room where you feel comfortable and can study. The third skill, and the last one that I'd love to share with you, is self advocacy. So, this one is a tough one. I'm going to warn you, parents and students. Students, you may be feeling nervous and thinking, oh no, Melissa, I don't want to interact with my teachers. I'm good just sitting in class. Parents, you may feel like you're not part of being on the team anymore. Like you don't have all the know of what you used to, or you can't contact the teachers anymore with concerns. Well, we're going to encourage this all to go through the student. So that's going to be the shift when you transfer over to high school. So why not start trying right now in middle school? So what comes to mind for me is a car. Let's use this analogy. The student, guess where you're at? You're in the driver's seat. And as scary as that is for mom and dad, I'm going to encourage you to sit in the passenger seat. So with that, I would ask you to think, what kind of questions can I be asking? So students, instead of sitting back during a lesson, maybe feeling frustrated or lost and just ignoring it, I would say to you, why don't you try to actively engage with your teacher? Why don't you ask a question? Ask for help. Raise your hand for clarification. Ignore that feeling of being confused because later on it's going to hurt you because you're not going to be ready when you're studying for the test and you're going to regret that. So I would just encourage you to be active. The second thing I would say is, okay, maybe students, you're sitting there going, cool, Melissa, I am scared to actually raise my hand in class. I don't want to go up to my teacher after class or after school. What else could I try? How about emailing your teacher? So don't be afraid to ask for help. And if this is your route to asking for help, perfect. Email them. So parents, how can you help with this? You can help your child craft the email to their teacher. You could give them suggestions on what to say. But we aren't going to write it for them. Remember, we want them to send it, so it needs to be owned completely by the student. So as much as you want to write it and say send it, try not to do that, okay? Work with them on their response to the teacher or their email. The other thing I would say is students, I would encourage you to speak up before your grade slip. So in case something were to shift and things get a little harder, you should be monitoring your grades on your portal a few times a week. Did you hear me? Few times a week, not daily, not 4 times a day, just a couple of times a week. In doing so, I think that you're going to find some relief in seeing how your graded assignment and your assessments affect your grade. You're just going to be able to see how much of a chunk is taken out of your grade or how it affects it. So ask your teacher for clarification on a grade if you feel like you should have done better, or ask for help before it's too late. Because again, we want you to advocate for yourself and feel confident. So confidence is what grows when students realize they can handle the uncomfortable. So parents, as hard as it is to encourage it, and students, as hard as it is to be uncomfortable, we want you to get comfortable. We want you to be put in those situations because it's only going to teach you this skill of self-advocacy. And I promise it's going to become easier when you speak up and you get to see the results of speaking up, right? It's going to be totally worth it. So maybe you're sitting there and you're wondering, as we wrap up our time together, what can we be doing now to make sure this middle school to high school is an easy transition? And again, we don't want to rush it. I acknowledge that we're middle schoolers right now and we're middle school parents, but everyone around us is telling us it's time, it's time, it's time. And I get that, especially in my business. So I just want to encourage you that take a deep breath. And this is all going to go slower as much as you can make it slow down. And we have this huge runway that's going to allow us to do these things little by little. And I'm not asking you to change it all overnight. Please hear me. So, what can we do right now? First of all, it's that gradual release of responsibility. Of course, we don't need to change everything. We do not need to do a major overhaul of our current systems, but rather, I would really encourage you and your student to focus on the systems that are working now. Pause, talk about it, reflect as a family, and discuss what's working. And what is that going to look like in high school? Will it still work? Are there things we should try now to see if it's going to change? Or do we just sit back and let it work because it's working beautifully at the moment? The second thing I would encourage you to think about is let natural consequences teach. As hard as it is to watch your child fail, and I know I'm firsthand, have two kids in college, one who failed a college class. We've been there, but we learn from those natural consequences, and I promise you they'll bounce back. So, students, it's hard. I get it, but you're going to be fine. And the last thing I would say is don't fix the problem for them, but rather ask them, what is your plan? Let's reflect on what you're thinking about changing for the next time so it doesn't happen again. Again, we're asking them to reflect, not telling them what they could do differently. And again, I've learned that as a parent. Focusing on systems and not reminders is also a great thing to be working on right now in middle school. So again, hear me, start small. We want to start with fewer reminders. We want to try to lessen the nagging, if you will, of daily things to our student and rather ask them questions and reflect. So ask them what's going well, what systems are working. Are your grades slipping and why? Are your grades great? Why are they great? What are you doing? This is encouraging. And what can I change or improve on if anything needs to be? So just again, go to reflection mode versus constantly reminding them and give them an opportunity to reflect on the changes that need to be made. Maybe talk through what it is they're concerned about. What are some things that they need your help on changing, and how could you come around that? Because having these conversations now is going to only help your child be more successful later. So again, we have this opportunity to start early, right? The earlier the skills are built, the less stressful high school becomes. And that's why we're talking about it tonight. It's not to scare you. It's not to get you fired up because, oh my goodness, high school is right around the corner. But it's really just, we're not trying to rush the students into high school mode, but rather take those steps to prepare them while we have the runway to do it and have time. So my challenge to you would be experiment with the changes and systems that y'all have talked about, test drive them like the car scenario, right? And see if it works for your child. See what fits best because it's all about what works for them. And although we know things may change in high school, at least you've built that foundation of skills for them, which is super important for the transition. So here we are at the end of our presentation. I hope you found this to be helpful and encouraging as you prepare to launch your middle school students that are watching. I hope that you're encouraged by this and can think, oh, I can do this. So I would leave you with a couple questions. I'd ask you to consider three things. Number one, which skill do you feel needs the most attention right now? So students, think about it for a second. Is there something right now that you're like, yeah, it's January, almost February, and I really could change my attitude or shift this way of doing this with my homework or tests? You don't need to fix everything at once. So hear me. We're not asking you to redo everything or fix everything tonight, but actually ask yourself, what is the need right now to be changed? And how can I reflect on that to make those changes? Second thing I would ask you to consider is, where is the student already independent? Show them, say it to them, encourage them, recognize, right? Just pointing out that they're doing a great job and that they are able and capable of being independent. Oftentimes, our students will act like they can't do it and act helpless. My college kids do that all the time, and we have to tell them they are capable. So, your next step is simply noticing and recognizing them. Be strong and encourage them. And where you're still relying on you, they might need to shift that a little, and you just need to encourage them to make that adjustment. What's one small shift, is my last question, that you can make this month? Again, one, just asking you to do one. Are we taking it in baby steps? Because that's what we really need to do. And I will leave you with this. Small changes now are going to totally make for a smoother freshman year. So thank you again, Kyla. I truly appreciate the opportunity to share my skills with you that I've learned as a middle school teacher in life skills. And I hope that you will find this helpful for you and your student as you prepare to launch them into high school.
Thank you so much, Melissa. So we're still in our Q&A session. So if you have any questions, please be sure to drop those in the Q&A section of the Zoom. You can find that at the bottom panel on the right side. But we do have two questions here. So as a parent, how do I support without micromanaging? What kind of advice do you have for not micromanaging your child? And what does that gradual release look like in real life?
So again, Kyla, I think my presentation spelled that out really well with self-advocacy. It is really hard not to micromanage. And as they launch through every grade, we can talk about every grade, even coming from elementary to middle school. It's just super important to be coaching and mentoring and not hovering over them and doing things for them. I think the number one takeaway that I would encourage parents not to do is do it for them. Let them fail a little bit, let them experiment more in middle school because in high school it becomes more serious.
Yeah, for sure. So we have one question from the audience. As an eighth grader, how do I not feel anxious for high school? I'm leaving all my trusted teachers behind, and I'm definitely not ready to have to decide my life.
Oh, and you're not going to have to. So I hope that you did not get that from this presentation, that you have to decide tonight what you're going to be and what your future holds for you. The first thing I would tap into is you are going to get a brand new set of teachers that care and love on you and are there to support you. So although you hear that that independence becomes more on you and less for your teachers to check on you, you are absolutely still going to have them walk side by side. And you're going to find the ones that are going to be someone you can grow a relationship with. And long term, maybe it becomes someone that can be a recommender for your college applications. And again, hear me loud and clear. You do not have to decide. I know that some of our schools encourage you to pick a pathway or a track, if you will, in high school. And it is a-okay that you don't know right now as an eighth grader. But I also on the side would encourage you to start thinking about stuff. Maybe it's doing some shadow opportunities out in volunteer opportunities, or go see a friend that is of your parents that might be in a field or a career that you would consider doing just to expose yourself. But again, you don't have to decide as an eighth grader or ninth grader.
Absolutely. That was a great question.
It
And then we
really
have
was.
one. Mhm. And then we have one more question. So, what should students do if they fall behind early? What do they say specifically, and who do they talk to?
Of course, we are going to go to our teachers, right? When we fall behind. I mean, ultimately, mom and dad are still available. I don't want to write mom and dad out of the picture. So, of course, mom and dad are there to coach and mentor and help you get back on track and maybe relieve a little bit of that stress of feeling overwhelmed. But again, encouraging you to go see a teacher and just be honest. As a teacher myself for so many years, I loved it when I got an email from a student or they came up to me after class and were just honest. Hey, Miss Decker, I am just really struggling. I don't understand this. My grades are slipping. I can't get ahead because I play football, on and on, right? And you're going to find those teachers are super supportive and will help you along the way.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for answering those questions, Melissa.
Absolutely.
If anybody has any burning questions that they want to put in the chat, you can do that right now, right now. But if not, we can move forward and wrap up our webinar for tonight. All right, no questions. All right, let's keep it moving. So I just want to thank everyone so much for joining us today. A big thanks to our Young Scholars members for participating, to the parents for supporting your students, and our amazing, amazing host, Melissa Decker, for sharing your insights and energy. We hope you found today's session helpful and inspiring as you take steps towards a successful high school journey. And don't forget, the recording and slide deck will be shared by email so you can revisit them at any time. And we're so glad that you are part of the Young Scholars community. We will see you guys next time.
Thank you.
Thank you guys.